Hello my friends, Grim here. I hope you're well. Thanks for joining me for a brief video on my 5 favorite things about patch 2.6 for D2R. Note before we begin the subjectivity that is inherent in these types of discussions. While there are many things that we can basically all agree upon, there are other things that will just vary radically person to person. For example, I have next to no interest in the assassin. No offense, she's just bottom of the barrel for me. It's just what it is. Therefore, things that are objectively exciting for assassin mains, like the introduction of Mosaic and the buff 2 trap skills, do not appear in my top 5. That said, let's jump right into it and see what did. Thank you for hanging out. Kicking off my list at number 5, Terror Zones are now available in offline games. Guys, I am just a huge Terror Zone fan in general. They're very exciting. I think everything from the theme to how they actually affect gameplay is on point, and they, most importantly, in my opinion, above and beyond anything else, they give you, the endgame farmer, a very compelling reason to go places that you would otherwise never go. You can go to some of the forgotten corners of Sanctuary and be efficient and productive while doing so, rather than just having to change it up in order to stay sane. Terror Zones rule. They're really, really cool. So why are they down here in the bottom slot of my list at number 5? Well, it's basically for one reason and one reason only. And that reason is that I think there should be compelling reasons to play online and compelling reasons to play offline. We don't need it to be virtually strictly better to play on or offline for that matter, and therefore keeping a compelling identity difference between online and offline play is very crucial, in my opinion, to the overall health of D2 Resurrected. Again, I'm a huge Terror Zone stan, but I think the only potential downside with this is we run the risk of being, kind of funneling more and more people into offline play between this change and some of the other changes we'll cover later on in this list. Number 4 is actually a nerf to Sorceress. Cold Mastery is now applied at 1/5 effectiveness after an immunity is broken. Developer's note reads, "We wanted to bring Cold Mastery in line with all other skill-based elemental resistance-reducing effects for increased consistency." I don't have much to add to that. I'm a big believer in kind of tamping down outliers without radically restructuring the game. I know this game is very old. I know that it's very solved. Still, there's no reason to have such extreme outliers in my opinion. Apologies to all Cold Sorc mains whose dreams this update crushes, but based on the community reaction I've read so far, most people think this is a good change. I'm one of them. Number 3 consists of the buffs to the Hustle runeword, which is Shale, Co, and Eld, and can be made in any weapon or armor item. So between the sheer versatility that lack of restriction in terms of what it can go into provides, and the fact that it's using some real cheap runes all in all, already I was kind of looking with a bit of interest at Hustle. But not only do we have a lot of buffs, and the buffs are not insignificant, far from it, the buffs of course power up the item, but also serve to further differentiate thematically and in other ways the weapons from the armor. So just to briefly cover the buffs, for armor, faster run walk goes up to 65 from 50, increased attack speed goes up to 40 from 20, plus 6 to evade is a brand new affix, and all resistances plus 10. So all in all, some very, very powerful changes, thematically cool as well, and the weapon follows suit. There's a lot we could talk about here. The thing I want to zero in on is the level 1 fanaticism aura. This is really, really interesting, not only for characters who really would benefit from it in and of themselves, but also for parties, also for summons, and on top of all of that, this, I'm told, actually stacks with other fanaticism auras. So all in all, this makes Hustle very appealing, not only for its low cost, not only for leveling, not only for solo self-found characters, but conceivably with some of these changes, actually for endgame builds. Very, very interesting, looking forward to making this, no doubt about it. Number 2, you can now receive Sundering Charms as a drop in offline Terror Zone games too. So I know that Terror Zones are a prerequisite for Sundering Charms. Let's indulge in a quick mental exercise and pretend that they're not. If you consider Sunder Charms in a vacuum versus Terror Zones in a vacuum, I don't think the concerns about making offline play slightly too appealing, or at least too samey feeling with online play that I articulated regarding Terror Zones in place 5 on my list applies as much to Sundering Charms. I know that they're kind of controversial, right? I know that they make certain builds viable that might not otherwise be even a thing, and I know that they kind of cripple perhaps the more creative builds, the more hybrid builds. I understand and acknowledge all of those concerns. However, to me, Terror Zones are very much a defining facet of online. It feels just a little bit weird to see them go offline in a way that I don't think applies to Sunder Charms. And although, again, all of those concerns around Sunder Charms are totally valid, let's face it, immunities are kind of a flawed design in the first place. Now, I do not advocate, of course, restructuring D2 Resurrected from the ground up to scale difficulty in other ways while completely doing away with immunities. Immunities are a defining feature of the game for better or for worse, and I think it's good that Sunder Charms exist as a way to kind of bring something, you know, take away the binary nature of immunities and bring them back to something resembling the normal gameplay that you're kind of trained on as you make your first characters, as you play through Normal and Nightmare. So for that reason, Sunder Charms going offline, A-okay with me. And topping my list are the tweaks and alterations made to Terror Zones. The red font text below denotes which new zones may be terrorized or zones that will now be terrorized in unison. And there are one or two things that they maybe missed out on, like you could have combined Tristram with a Stony Field easily enough for actually like a really cool, in my opinion, Terror Zone. But generally speaking, I'm very, very happy with these changes, which of course apply now to both offline and online as well. Act 1 and Act 2, not that exciting IMO. Act 3, it actually is a case of addition by subtraction, getting rid of the horrifying Kurast sewers as a Terror Zone. Nobody wants to see that. No changes to Act 4. Well, what's the big deal then? How is this number 1? It's because all of the Act 5 changes are completely amazing. Bloody Foothills and Frigid Highlands might literally be my favorite place to farm, in the fact that you can now do Bloody Foothills and Frigid Highlands together, both terrorized. That's going to be one of the most desirable hours and profitable hours of gameplay for any character that can hack it. I also love the fact that they've added Abaddon and Pit of Acheron to those accompanying kind of overland areas. It now gives you a reason to go down there. There are some of the most pointless areas in the entire game. Now there's a little bit more reason, at least, to pop in there every now and then. There you go, guys. Those are my thoughts on my 5 favorite things they did with this patch. I know that it's a little underwhelming to some, and I know that other things are actually relatively unpopular. The good news, I've got a top 5 most hated video coming out soon. Make sure you stay tuned for that, give us a thumbs up, and I'll see you next time. Take care. Talk to you soon.